Testing 1, 2, 3. If we could get people to start moving in, and if we can find Dakota Road, we're going to get this show back on the road. Well, do we have a legal ballot? Do we have a legal ballot? Oh, I don't know. Well, we got to go back and pick up. Okay. We need some traveling music there, buddy. Come on in and join the party.
There's a little song called Your Love is Everlasting. If they can pull it up on the screen, Your Love is Everlasting.
So on the refrain, I'll sing Your Love, and I want to have you echo it back. Can we practice that once? Here we go. Your love, together we sing is lasting. Your love is everlasting. Your love is lasting. Your love is everlasting. Since time began through centuries, God's love is everlasting. Distant, unknown galaxies, God's love is everlasting. Splendor springs forth across the land, God's love is everlasting. Abundant sharing hand in hand, God's love is everlasting. Your love is lasting. Your love is everlasting. Your love is lasting. Your love is everlasting. Mother's womb, a brand new life. God's love is everlasting. Empty tomb, the risen Christ. God's love is everlasting. Weeping may last for the night. God's love is everlasting. But joy breaks forth with morning light. God's love is everlasting. Your love is lasting. Your love is everlasting. Your love is lasting. Your love is everlasting. Signs of hope, a voice of peace. God's love is everlasting. Prophets cry for war to cease. God's love is everlasting. For the down and out and high and proud, God's love is everlasting. Come on, you people, shout out loud. God's love is everlasting. Your love is lasting. Your love is everlasting. Your love is lasting. Your love is everlasting. Oh, it's lasting. Your love is lasting. Your love is everlasting. Your love is lasting. Your love is everlasting. Your love is lasting. Your love is everlasting. Your love is lasting. Your love is everlasting.
Great singing. You're going to go?
All right, time to go back to work. Is Kathy McHenry in the room? All right. Instead, we will have our campus ministry. Come on down.
Thanks. Well, good afternoon, everybody. All right. I am Rachel Nelson, and I serve as the Campus Ministry Director out in the Black Hills. We've renamed ourselves a little bit, so we're Lumen the Hills and Rapid City and Spearfish. Yeah, Bear Butte. Anyway, I bring the rowdy crowd with me. Campus Ministry has over 230 sites across the United States, and we are grounded in Christ as we live into our identity as children of God through hospitality, service, justice, integrity, curiosity, and wherever you are, and whoever you are, wherever you are in your faith of journey, we invite you to walk with us. And that's kind of our whole mission for Campus Ministry. So I just want to send you an invitation to come meet myself and the other campus ministers from South Dakota. We have a table downstairs, and there's a silent auction that will end at 1 o'clock tomorrow. So there's some really great stuff. Come bid on it, come say hi, come talk to us at our table later. Thank you.
Wow. Woohoo! Fastest report ever. Way to go, Rachel. Thanks very much for our campus ministries that we have around the state, all 5 of them. They do a marvelous job working with our young people as they attend higher education. And we actually have a congregation at Augie. So and we introduced Pastor Ann Rosendale earlier. All right, Kathy McHenry, our Executive Director for Lutheran Planned Giving.
I am so excited. After 2 years, it is great to see so many familiar faces, and I hope my face is familiar to a few of you. I have heard that I am known for my laugh, which I guess is a good thing since the bishop talked about God's sense of humor this morning in his message. I just want to extend my thanks to all of the pastors and congregations, the church councils, endowment committees, Welca ladies, that I have been blessed to work with over the last 2 years, and especially those people whose love for Jesus just pours out in these amazing, spirit-led, sometimes tax avoidance-driven, joyful generosity. That's really what this work that I do with Lutheran Planned Giving is all about, is joy. It's not fundraising, it's not arm twisting, it's just generosity. And thankfully, this process is one that brings me that great joy every day. The treats that I have downstairs on the table are not an accident. We have Jolly Ranchers and Almond Joy for you. So I hope you'll stop down to visit with me. I want to leave you with a quote that I found this week from Maya Angelou. It just showed up, and it describes the work of all of us today. My wish for you is that you continue to be who and how you are, to astonish a mean world with your acts of kindness. Continue to allow humor to lighten the burden of your tender hearts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathy. I appreciate it. If Pastor Greg Wilcox from Good Samaritan is here, I would invite him to please come forward to bring a greeting, and you can tell him thank you and the Good Sam organization for the water bottles. So you can do that as he's walking. You're welcome.
Thank you, Bishop Dave, and thanks for that scattering of applause. I'm grateful for that. This is the, 5th or 6th year that Good Samaritan has given water bottles away at the Synod Assembly. And I was here early this morning putting the water bottles together, and somebody came up and said to me, "Oh, you're Mr. Water Bottle Man." And I never stand on formality, so I didn't say it, but I thought to myself, no, I'm Pastor Water Bottle Man. But either one is fine. I appreciate being identified with the water bottles. There are a lot of these left. I know some of you have taken them, and in the past, very often we've been at the back doors after the first plenary session and just handed them to you. We're not doing that this year. I hope that after this session, or sometime this afternoon, the two tables on the left side over here that are full of water bottles. Some are opaque, like this white one. If you don't want people to know what you're drinking, I'd recommend this one. Many of them you can see through, but please take one or two. I want to get rid of them. In the past, I have always used this opportunity to say thank you to you who come from the variety of Lutheran parishes around South Dakota, and many of you who visit our Good Samaritan care centers or other care centers around the country, around South Dakota especially. I want to turn the tables a little bit this morning for my welcome and greeting. And instead, I want to ask you to say thanks to the people who work, especially the certified nursing assistants who work in our care centers, other care centers all around South Dakota. I got this little thank you from one of our family members. I'd just like to read that as kind of my greeting. And with it, to invite you to do that when you get a chance, sometime in the next weeks or months. This is from the daughter of one of our residents. For every time you touched Mom with love, even though she hit, kicked, and said, "I hate you," thank you. For the times you said, "You look great in red," or "I like your new shoes," thank you. For the times you spooned food, especially ice cream, into Mom's mouth, thank you. For the times you cleaned her and changed her bedding with grace and good humor, thank you. For your sensitivity and awareness of her moods and changes to respond with the right meds, thank you. For responding with kindness and patience even when your own life is falling apart, thank you. For seeing my mom's beauty and strength and humor even through the ravages of her disease, thank you. For never seeming judgmental about my rare visits, thank you. For Gwen's assurances of Mom finding a measure of joy on the floor, thank you. For the musicians and chaplains who brought solace and the Holy Spirit, thank you. The work you do on the floor every day is a reflection of the best that humankind can do, divine and exalted even in the stink and clamor that you sometimes face. I honor you. No words can adequately convey my feelings except thank you. I was tempted to say, go hug a CNA, but we are Lutheran, so I want to say, find someone who does that, who gives themselves away every day in the midst of some long-term care setting, and say thank you. They give themselves in ways that are almost miraculous, despite, as this little thank you said, their own troubles and trials. So please, take one of these water bottles sometime today, and please, remember to say thanks to those folks who give their hearts and their hands every day, often in Christ's name, to make a difference for those folks. Thank you very much, folks.
Well, since we did most of the announcements and introductions earlier, I was on the wrong page, if you hadn't noticed. We're not going to redo them. At this time, I'm going to invite Carla, our Vice President, to please come forward and take over.
So, good afternoon, and thank you for being prompt and coming back to our plenary session this afternoon. Just a couple of announcements that we have for you. Please silence your cell phones as we're in this plenary session. Either turn them off or turn them to vibrate. The temporary synod office is at the information desk in the gathering space, and so if there are questions that you have, you could find some of our synod office staff or some of the volunteers there to help answer your questions. And then you were probably told this when you registered, or when you checked in, that when you received your voting device, and the reminder that we're all responsible for keeping track of our voting devices through the overnight last night, and again through the overnight tonight. They're your responsibility to keep track of, and then we will be turning them in at the end of the assembly tomorrow. If you should happen to lose your device or take it home with you, there's numbers, and your name corresponds with the numbers, so someone will track you down. Or if you completely like lose it, there's a small fee of, it says here, $52 to help replace the voting device. And so, just a word to the wise, keep track of your voting device. And then an announcement for rostered ministers. You are invited to take a new picture outside the Celebrate Center over on this side for a new online roster photo directory that will be published later this summer. That's it for the announcements, and now I'm going to call on Kelsey to provide us with another Credentials Committee report.
As of 1 p.m. today, we have 141 clergy voting members, 231 lay female voting members, 157 lay male voting members, with a total of 388 lay voting, with a total of 529 voting members.
Thank you, Kelsey. And I know Bishop said earlier, but again, I want to reiterate the thank you for those folks that are serving on both our Bishop Election Committee and then also the Election Committee. They were the group that are manning the doors, passing out the ballots. And while we were eating lunch, they were counting all of the ballots. And so that work has been done, and I will call on Mr. Bill Horn to give us the results of the first ballot for Bishop.
Thank you, Carla. I believe these results will be posted on the slides as I read the names. This is the result of the first ballot. Bill Tesch, 85. Constanza Hogmeyer, 60. Tom Opoyan, 58. Heidi Benstock, 53. Herb Wounded Head, 24. Randy Gehring, 22. Rick Sinner, 21, Dwight Stensgaard, 19, Jonathan Vihar, 18, Scott Hackler, 16, Randy Fett, 14, Jeff Otterman, 6, Ramona Hayes, 5, Erica Lehman, 4, Jeff Backer, 3, Jeff Isley, 3, Tricia Bays, 3, 2. Mark Dockin, 2. Mindy Erke, 2. Lorna Hallis, 2. Ingrid Rasmussen, 2. Paul Sternholm, 2. Jeff Willock, 2. Lando Anderson, 1. Nadia Bowles-Weber, 1. Amy Current, 1. Andrea DeGroot Nestal, 1. Ryan Gage, 1. Tanya Haber, 1. Greg Johnson, 1. Frank Kozlarek, 1. Justin Kosick, 1. Paul Manchin, 1. Janet Miller, 1. Lane Nelson, 1. Eric Ortman, 1. Loris Olson, 1. Dan Overbo, 1. Becky Piper, 1. Karen Russell, 1. Don Schold, 1. Jeff Sorensen, 1. And Gary Westgard, 1. As a reminder, if you do not want to continue in the voting, you have to submit a form indicating such by no later than 2 p.m. I will now turn it over to Bishop Zell.
All right. We're going to do a little practice of voting devices. So if you can either pull those out, and we'll have the first slide. And you need to start by just pushing the button down in the bottom left-hand corner to get it to come on. Mine was off. And what conference are you from? So I'll let you read. And if you don't know, ask the people around you. Or you can fib and just pick the one you like the best. So if you're from Prairie Coteau, pick A. And if you're from Bear Butte, go with G. Please vote now. So when you vote, look at the screen, and it should come up with the number and letter of the button that you pushed. And the one thing we know for sure, do not hold the voting device down around your ankles. It doesn't work down there. I know there's pastors out there right now. Oh, mine works fine. I voted on the floor. Can you please close the vote and display the results? Look at that. All right, next practice. What breakout session will you attend this afternoon? Okay. You notice that the mall is not on there. All right, please vote now for the workshop that you will be attending this afternoon. Guys, can you see when the counter stops counting? Give me a thumbs up. I can't see that. Okay, please close the vote. And, oh, very good. All right, excellent. Can you switch it over to show numbers? Look at that. No? Oh, forget it. If you're good at math, you ought to be able to do it in your head, right? All right, next slide. Is this your first Synod Assembly? Please vote now. I'm not getting anything. Oh, now I did. Did you get the display in your, okay? All right, close the vote and let's display it. All right. Do we have any more practice slides? Nope, okay. Are you ready for my report? No? You're not ready for my report? How about, Randy, why don't we switch over to the, all right, my last State of the Synod. I please read my report. There's a number of thank yous in there. I'll do a couple of those in this verbal one, but much of the report is a thank you that's written. And I wanted you to see my favorite office. Most of you know that I'm a pilot, and this is a picture down below Aberdeen, southeast of Aberdeen. It's actually from several years ago. Right now it's all flooded. None of that river that you're looking at right there would be in the banks currently. In fact, it would be water from about mid to the top of the land down below. I just had work up in Aberdeen, and I know there's additional flooding that's taking place again. So that's the Jim River, but it's one of the most beautiful places in the state, and it's right south of Scandinavia. So I wanted you to see my favorite office. Having the gift of being able to fly, you get to see the earth and the sky in a totally different way, and you just get to see things that normal human beings never have the opportunity of looking at. So I want you to see that I earned a doctorate with very little effort, mostly by just showing up. So this part of the report is, I wanted you to hear the highlight of the work that we did together, and the most impactful work I think that we did in 12 years. Of all the things that we got done over these past 12 years, this one impacted more people that you and I will never meet than anything else that we did. Starting in about 10 we worked with the Norwegian Mission Society, the Norwegian Lutheran Church, the Canadian Lutheran Church, particularly the Synod of Manitoba. We worked with Lutheran Bible Institute, with hospital systems, particularly out of Duluth, St. Mary's out of Duluth, and we all contributed in one way or another in remodeling the hospital, which had been very tiny in Garabalai. Garabalai was then a city of about 40,000 people, and it is quite literally on the border with Central African Republic, on a major thoroughfare of the land that goes in, or the road that goes in and out of Cameroon, and then also goes south. So it's this major transition point. So we were able to create 3 different operating rooms, and we were able to build a room for that young woman to work in. You met her a couple of times during my 12 years. This is Dr. Joelle. She is the wife of Dr. Salofu, and her specialty was pregnancy and working with women throughout their pregnancy. And so she was an expert actually on sonograms and so on and so forth. And so that room was created just for her to do her work. So this was the day of the dedication. That's Bishop Elaine from Manitoba, and then Dr. Salofu and Dr. Joelle. Well, not very long after the work that was done, the violence that we had been experiencing in Central African Republic completely blew up. While we had been in country, the French army had been moving in a pretty significant number of troops and heavy equipment and helicopters as they moved to secure the border and to secure some locations, particularly around the cities that were on the eastern part of Cameroon. And so what happened within about 2 months of us being there is 250,000 people came over the border. And we had a brand new mayor, the first female, first woman and first Christian to be the mayor in Garabalai. So she'd been in office about 60 plus days when her city went from 40,000 people to almost 300,000 people. And it happened within about a month. So imagine having 250,000 people of your closest friends show up at your doorstep. So at the same time, we were having arguments, just to put it in perspective, we were having arguments about receiving 10,000 refugees in the United States. I had some difficulty with that number. So because we had a brand new hospital, the UN had something to work with, and the UN was able to bring in a whole unit of Doctors Without Borders. They come with 10 physicians, they come with some engineers, and nurses and administrative people, and they could move into our facility and expand it immediately. They dug a well so that there would be fresh water without need of having to truck it in from some other location, because electricity is very tenuous. Part of the gift that we provided, and we had participation from our rural electric cooperatives, is that we had put in a beautiful looking Swedish generator. So the hospital system always had electricity, no matter what. And they were very quickly determined that there was no way to bring in the people that were wounded. There was gunshot wounds, machete, dehydration, and then all the illnesses that you get when people are traumatized and having to move. That you couldn't keep bringing them into the hospital. So they were able, because again, we've got very highly skilled folks that were there to build clinics out in the refugee camps, and that only the sickest then got brought to the hospital. So that hospital got a letter of commendation, as did the mayor, for the work that they did over the 6 months that the people came. Most of the refugees have now gone back. There's been a different wave of refugees. As I've talked to our guest, Dennis, they were looking at about 60,000 people, and now we're looking at permanent residence for those individuals. But if you want to go home and brag about something, this is worth bragging. So thousands of people lived because of your work. So we've been reporting on KAIROS over the last, since 2014 was when we started our first 6 folks in the experiment. We are no longer an experiment. This is now a way for men and women to be invited into a leadership role where they start serving the church immediately and begin their seminary education through Sioux Falls Seminary Lutheran House of Studies. It has been difficult, I'll just say that. There have been all kinds of impediments. There's been just all kinds of conversations about how do we do it best, how do we best serve rural congregations, and how do we keep pulpits filled with people that know how to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. So this last January, President Robin Steinke from Luther Seminary, she and I finalized a memorandum of understanding so that KAIROS students throughout their seminary education can participate and affiliate with Luther Seminary. That solved one of the issues that I care about. I want seminarians to have as many voices in their ears as they're going through that educational process. I like that. I liked it when I was going through seminary. I didn't want to hear the same voice over and over and over again. I wanted to have different perspectives brought to me that helped me think and put together my own theology. And I've wanted that for our KAIROS students, and now we have that. So the agreement is in place for 3 years. Our students will affiliate. The South Dakota Synod is able to pay the $1,000 affiliation fee because there's been enough cost savings in the KAIROS program financial structure that we're able to do that. The students will pay for the classes, of which they will take 3. We've also gotten a professor from Luther to sit on our candidacy committee. We've not had that for a couple of years, and it's been great to have Dr. Grinquist come and serve with us on the candidacy committee. So if we can go back to that slide. Those are the churches and communities that are being served by KAIROS students. Some of them are completed and are now ordained, like out in Sturgis. Chris Garlick, Pastor Chris Garlick, are you here? You can actually stand up if you want. Chris actually went through every form of seminary education there is. But what I want you to understand, at least from where I sit in the church, the dots that we have up there of where people are currently serving, we would not have a name for them to come and preach and fill their pulpits without this program. And so I give thanks for Dr. Krogan, for President Greg Henson from Sioux Falls Seminary, for Sarah Stenson, for Susan Marone, our deacon who has participated in the work of all this, and President Steinke as well from Luther Seminary. So for me, it makes all the difference. You saw where I started. So if you've been to any of these before, you know I like to brag. If you haven't figured that out by now, you're not paying attention. And that's what 1,382 kids look like. It was so doggone much fun. We had the best music. Larry Olson and Dakota Road did the music along with the kids that came and were a part of their band. They just rocked the place. Our work days, for the most part, worked well. How did you say? You could have giggled a little bit, but it really was fun. This was the first time that the bishops got housed with our students. And that's what one of the evenings would look like as we gathered for worship. So part of the mind when the Lutheran Day started, I know it began before Bishop Eitram's time. I couldn't find in the history it had to be back in the 40s or 50s. I know there was a time in the 50s where almost all the legislators in South Dakota were Lutheran. And truthfully, I'm not making that part up. And so there's always been this tradition of having a Lutheran Day where there would be a dinner and you would invite all the legislators that were Lutheran to come and be a part of that. Bishop Andrea continued that, and so did I. By the time we got to 2016, it was mostly Betty Oldenkamp from Lutheran Social Service and my staff and her staff doing the majority of the work. But we began to see some things in 2015 and 2016 in the legislative process that I found pretty disturbing. So in 2018, Betty and I, instead of doing a Lutheran Day, turned it into an Interfaith Day. And so Betty and I invited every judicatory leader that we could get our hands on, and then every person in a leadership role from other faiths. And the first year we had some tension. I don't have bodyguards very often, but I had bodyguards that year. I had two very nice young highway patrol people that followed me everywhere I went. So it went well though. I mean, and we got done. And what we were trying to get done is to lift up the First Amendment to our Constitution of the United States. I particularly like that one. And it does mean that we get to gather together in our faith communities, or lack thereof, if you want to do that, without being persecuted. And the legislation that was being proposed was wanting to withdraw those First Amendment protections from different groups here in South Dakota. So this year we had a lot more people, and I did not have bodyguards this year, nor did I need one. And there's the folks that were gathered there this year up on the grand staircase. And my concern, I will just say this briefly, is that this is work I think that will need to continue on. I am deeply concerned both about our state and our country, about the rise of hate groups. When I started 12 years ago, there were two organized groups that I would label as being hateful, that their premise of gathering together was to hate someone. Today there are 7 in South Dakota. We have a history in this state of the KKK being quite active. In fact, it was active up into the 60s in parts of this state. There's something in the DNA that kind of floats around in there that I think we need to pay attention to. So I would certainly invite whomever you elect to take up this mantle and continue the process. But you need to hear that your voice and your presence is equally as important. It matters that many people showed up. And it matters that you were present to remind people that each of us are accorded First Amendment rights. So Pastor Amy Martinell at Augustana Lutheran, and yeah, you can clap for her. She gets all the credit. And Pastor Maria at Pueblo de Dios last year called me up and said, we saw this thing on Facebook and we'd like to do it, and we think it's called an IFTAR, and I had to look it up on Wikipedia. And it's where our Muslim community during the month of Ramadan, they don't eat or drink until sunset. And then they do their evening prayers, and then they break fast. So she said, can you be here tomorrow? And it happened to be that I could be there tomorrow. And so attended, and we did it again this year. So this was just part of the gathering. We had a lot more people, and it was incredibly successful. The good people of Pueblo de Dios did the cooking, so we had Muslim people eating Mexican food. It was great to watch little children. It was just the best, because there was a lot of questions to Mom. What is this? The food was excellent, and it was just a really fun evening. Yeah, who is that nice-looking man on the right side there? So this is Maria's graduation. The picture on the left, we were down in San Antonio at the Seminary of the Southwest, where she received her certificate from the team program down there. She studied in Spanish, and currently that's our only place that we can have Spanish-speaking people go to school. And then that's the picture of her ordination day, and she truthfully is in there somewhere. And it's been great to have Pastor Maria. Well, what about a month ago, I suspect, Sawyer and I made a journey to Washington, D.C. This was my 12th time to go as your bishop for advocacy days. I've been going to D.C. to work particularly on farm bills since 1983, when Scandinavia Bethany said, if you're going to be our pastor, you should know something about farm bills. And they gave me a plane ticket and sent me to Washington, D.C. to learn something about the farm bill. And so since 1983, I've been working on farm bills ever since. We were not doing that because we passed it last year. This time the topic was principally around climate change and its effect on our natural disasters. So Senator Thune and I have known each other since 1993. We both got invited to the same coffee group in Pierce, South Dakota. He was executive director for something, and I was the brand new senior pastor at Lutheran Memorial. And we have gotten to be friends and have stayed friends since then. And so it was great to be in his office. The young woman on our left is Prairie Rose. She works for the ELCA within our American Indian Alaskan group. And there we are in front of the Capitol. So this is, I'll tell the story shortly. It's a long story. 20 years ago, there was a dream that the South Dakota Synod would buy Ascension Lutheran Church, and they would move to the north end of Rapid City and build a new congregation, and that as a synod, we would build a retreat center at the new church called Woyatan. And for all kinds of reasons, which are way too long to detail in this report, that has not happened until now. So as a part of the campaign that we are in the end of concluding, there was $350,000, which was a pretty good number when we started working on the project in 2014. We discovered by the time we got to building, we missed it by this much. One, there were building code changes in Rapid City that had a huge impact, and then the fire marshal showed up and said, oh, by the way, you have to do sprinkling throughout the entire building. That'll cost you about $200,000. So we were a little bit north of where we were. So the money has already been sent, which is why you see building going up. But we need to raise a little bit more money, about $300,000. So my goal is to raise that dollar amount and that the building be completed before I'm done. So the offering that you gave today and that you'll give tomorrow will be going to the retreat center. There have already been some gifts that are coming in. We're going to find out early next week if a very nice young lady is going to give us a challenge gift, and if we get that, we will make that announcement. She likes challenge gifts. But I really do want this building complete. I want to be able to hand it off to the new bishop so that we are ready to go into the next part of the development of the program and staffing. I want it to be a place where people can come together and have an opportunity to very safely and comfortably get to know one another, where we can host AmeriCorps kids that come for a year or teach across America. Those people can come and stay in this building. That would be my dream. It would be the exact same dream, in fact, that we have down at Pine Ridge. We've had this incredibly successful ministry down there, and we're wanting to replicate it in Rapid City. So Listen, God is Calling. We are at received $3.7 million. We've got a little bit more than 100,000 to collect. If you still have an outstanding gift, it would be helpful if you would pay it up. Just saying. So I want you to give a thanks to the Reverend Bob Hanson. I don't know if Bob is here today, but he was our chairperson. And then Debbie Gallipol and Marilyn Green, who are coordinators. And both of them have passed away since we started this project, but their families I know are here. And if you would give them a round of applause. The most recent thing that we worked on and put together with Jim Shady, John Rasmussen from the bank up in Sisseton, Dave Johnson from Relia Bank, and Dana Dykehouse from First Premier Bank, was our seminary debt refinancing. It is available to all of our pastors. We have been to court to allow us to use some monies that have been going to seminary debt reduction or seminary scholarships to help underwrite this program. So we currently have loaned out right at $500,000 to pastors who are serving in South Dakota. 3 of them have already paid off their loans. We currently have about $324,000 loaned out. And it has made a huge impact on the lives of pastors. The best part of this whole thing is when we pay off their debt, we make them sign a new note and charge them 3.75%. And we have a donor who, up to this point, has been paying the interest every year. So he just wrote us a check for about $18,000 to pay the interest. So a couple of announcements. Golf tournament. We moved it 1 week later. It is on July 15th. It is at Country Club of Sioux Falls. Top sponsored teams are $1,000. $600 for a regular team. And we have a major gift, like we always have, that pays for the golf and food. So your entire registration fee goes to the bottom line. And all of the money is matched by a sweet young lady who has done that every year. And it all goes towards seminary debt reduction, which is our other the other debt reduction program that we have. I don't know who that guy is, but he's got a nice hat. So the last thing that I will be doing as the bishop is the bishop's blast. We're going to be at Hunters Point. Same kind of entry fee, $1,000 for top sponsor, $600 for the regular team. We'll feed you twice, not just once. And all of the money that we raise, again, is matched by a sweet young lady. She likes doing that as well. And all of that will go to support the seminary recruitment position that we have in place currently. So that's August 25th. For note, Bishop's installation is not here. I've already heard that being bandied about. It will be at Gloria Day, which is on the southeast corner of the city. It will be on September 7th at 1:30 p.m. Presiding Bishop Eaton will be there. And then the very next day, the installation will happen in Northwest Minnesota. So that concludes my report. So just a word of thanks to, first of all, to the people I work with. They have been a gift. Two of them for sure have thousands of miles under their belt. They don't have the benefit of being a pilot, and still they go. We all travel between 25 and 40,000 miles a year across the roads of South Dakota. Susan Marone and Bill Tesh show up, and I give great thanks for their work. The rest of the staff has just been stalwart. They save you money, are efficient in ways that I give thanks for every single day. And then I give thanks for you, the people of South Dakota, the people that invited me into this role. We tried to get the right numbers. I've got 4 more ordinations this year. I think I'm going to come in at 115 ordinations in 12 years. And the best part of that is 92 of them are still here in South Dakota. That's what matters. We came in right at where we thought we would. About 145 people have retired in the last 12 years. We've invited about 45 other folks, experienced pastors, to come and serve in South Dakota, which is between the KAIROS program, seminarians, and folks coming. We're in pretty doggone good shape. So thank you so much for this opportunity to be in this role and in this position. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, now I need to get back on track. All right. We need Pastor Craig Wexler. We're going to move to the election of Synod Council members. And if we can get that slide, and I need my crew up here. Everybody filled? Do we have everybody filled? Perfect. It's you.
Resolution, it's listed as resolution number 2, subject, elect South Dakota Synod Council members, brought to us from Resolution Committee. Resolved that the South Dakota Synod of the ELCA elect the following conference nominees to the South Dakota Synod Council for a term of 4 years. Prairie Coteau Conference lay member Michael Miller from Summit, Prairie Coteau Conference lay member Pam Seefelt from Clark, Madera Conference lay member Jim Iverson from Madison, Southeastern Conference clergy Reverend Jim Fowler from Vermilion, Northern Plains Conference lay member Stan Jung from Warner, and Bear Butte Conference clergy, Reverend Tara Casau, sorry Tara, from Bison.
She was from Buffalo. Just heard that, I don't know where I heard it, but. Are there any other nominations for Synod Council? Seeing no one moving, are you prepared to vote? Yes? Okay. Can we vote by voice? Do you want to? Let's vote by applause. What do you think? Are you okay with that? Yeah, let's do it. All those in favor of the Synod Council, the slate of people in front of you, please vote by applause. And just to make all things righteous, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Mr. Grumpy Pants over here. I'll hear the lecture one more time. You know you can't vote by applause. Yes, we can. We just did. Opposed? They are elected. All right. Let's see here. We need Pastor Jonathan Steiner to please come forward, and he will be doing some work about Neighbors in Solidarity. Pastor Steiner.
Hello. We are here to talk about Neighbors in Solidarity for just a minute, and we have a way of acting, a hermeneutic, if you will, that is pray, learn, act. Will you say that with me? Pray, learn, act. One more time to get it in your head. Pray, learn, act. During your next break, we are going to give you some work to do. We will be handing out to you a sign-up paper as you leave. Everyone will be given one. There are 10 slots for signatures. Your job is to talk to all of our ministry leaders that we support here in South Dakota. There are 12 of them from Woyatan to Woonsocket, here Church on the Street in Sioux Falls, all across our ministries that could not function on their own if we did not support them. Your job is to learn about them, learn about the impact they make on people, and get them to sign this paper. When we gather once again, there will be these boxes at the entryways, and we are going to ask you to drop them into it. I think you guys can figure out how to do that. And then we are going to have a drawing for this wonderful piece of artwork over here that is done by Kevin Poorbear. We will do a drawing, and our winner, you must have all 10 signatures to be eligible for the drawing. So, please pray with me. Your job will be to learn when you go out on break, and then your action will be to sign up to become a neighbor in solidarity, to continue to learn about these ministries. Please pray with me. Holy and living God, thank you for being among us today as we celebrate all of the ministry that we do here in South Dakota. Be with our ministries that we support. Be with them in their work. Be with us as we open our hearts to learn about them and your will for us. We pray this in Jesus' most holy name. Amen. There are, along with these pages that you have, we have some purple pamphlets here that we would like you to make sure that you pick up from our makeshift synod office over here. There is information about each of those ministries in that pamphlet, along with a little brochure here that you can sign up with your email address to make sure that you get those. Am I missing something, Bill? All right. Thank you very much. I think I'm under time, and I'll turn it over to whoever is next.
At this time, I would invite our treasurer, Eric Gilbertson, to please come forward. If you are old enough, you remember his predecessor, Ty Inglis, would, not every year, but occasionally would get standing ovations for treasurer's reports, which I have never seen, before. But I think Eric's got it in him today. I don't know. I can just feel it. So, Eric Gilbertson, your treasurer.
The bishop was very diplomatic in that. He has never been shy in reminding me, you're not as funny as Ty was. My predecessor would also say, he had a great saying, isn't it a great day for accounting? Absolutely it is. And further, Bishop was testing us earlier when he was asking, if you're good at math, you can convert the numbers on if this is your first assembly or not. Not everybody voted on that, so. Yeah, little polling. Can I see a show of hands? Who here, this is your first assembly? Yeah, all right, thank you. Who are the grizzled vets in the room? Thank you, perfect. Who here has a device that they can take a picture with? Fantastic. And who here wants to see the accountant exceed his time on a numerical report? There's a candidate for treasurer 3 years from now, right in the back. So with that, I did see a number of hands go up on the picture devices. If you're willing to go with me, I'm going to break a cardinal rule of presentations, and I'm going to give you the conclusions in the end pretty much up front to allow a little more time for others. So if you're willing to indulge that, and we pull up the slides, we can go. But you got to take those picture devices out. And frankly, this is so that you can take this information back. I know, especially for you newcomers, this is going to be great numerical bliss for you. It's tough to remember this stuff, but there are a few key things that I'd like you to be able to take back to your congregations and share with them as part of the assembly. You grizzled vets, some of this stuff is going to look similar from the past, but like I said, I wanted to allow a little time for a couple other things. So I don't want to test the bounds of grace. I'm well on the clock already. This is your photo op right here. Key takeaways. So over the next couple, we'll just leave it up there for a few seconds, but what this is intended to give you a snapshot of last year, current year, and then what we're going to be proposing for next year and what you're going to be voting on tomorrow. Today is informational, and to help give you that baseline to make an informed vote tomorrow. So with that, I'll go ahead and just start in on the first bullet point because I see a few cameras still up. Starting with the past. Last year, every year we have an external audit firm come and audit the financials of the Synod. And this year, for 2018, as many years as they have in the past, they gave us a clean, unqualified audit opinion, which that is what you want. It gives us a clean bill of health for our finances. And at this point, I'm going to try to embarrass somebody. Lois, could you come a little closer? So, as you were probably aware from the introduction, Lois is the business manager for the Synod. In brief, the Synod, the budget that you're going to vote on is about $2 million of an operating budget. There's another $2 million in designated monies that we just spend the way donors tell us to, because that's what we have to do. And then there's an approximate $10 million endowment on top of that. Bill told you about his position being a volunteer one earlier. All the officers of the Synod are in the exact same position. There's absolutely no way, unless you're just not going to be employed, that the treasurer could undertake that work themselves. So, in addition to that, all the meetings that we have, Lois does great work in prepping us, having information ready so that we can have real substantive and strategic discussions. And quite frankly, I probably would not have been able to serve as treasurer because of my professional time obligations without someone as talented as her being the business manager. And the reason I'm going on about this a little bit, it's probably not a secret that sometimes with bishop transitions, there's a transition of staff at times too. I'm not here to start any rumors. I have no idea if Lois would be deciding that she wants to take her talents elsewhere. But I felt if this is the last opportunity I get to try to embarrass her and thank her for all the work that she's done, I'm not going to pass it up. So would you please join me in thanking Lois for all the work she does. And if you happen to be a candidate for bishop and you're looking for a great business manager, you got a great candidate right there. Not so subtle of a plug. So, we've taken care of the past. Not totally, I apologize. So, if you look in your materials, the past, the audit report, that is your past. That report is 22 pages long, and except for the gentleman in the back, most of you would probably not care to read it because it's long and those things put you to sleep, right? One of the ways that I would like to conceptualize this to everyone else, the results of that 2018 report, thinking about every dollar that the Synod spends, this would be the breakout of it. So approximately 70 cents out of every dollar is going to these different types of ministry. You have about 25 cents of every dollar going to staff wages and benefits. You have about a nickel going to some of these overhead items of insurance, utility supplies, the office stuff, the day-to-day stuff. And then less than a penny of it ends up going towards expenses relating to committee and council meetings. Another quick aside from this, I have been informed recently, I'm going to hone in on that less than 25 cents mark. I don't know that there's a lot of synods that would say they're flush with cash. However, I know there are some that are in different spots than we are. Some are able to spend up to 45 cents on every dollar towards their staffing. When we can get by on a quarter, what that tells me is we are incredibly lean, that we do a lot with a little in terms of staffing. So, and where I'd like to go with that, because this would be the last time I could potentially embarrass or say anything about the bishop, I will say just one thing. He talked about his walk this morning, and I've had the privilege of being part of the walk for the last 9 years. And Bill also put together part of the job description of the bishop. Talked about they are the chief executive officer. Well, that is very true. So in addition to the bishop having to be chief executive officer, you saw some of the highlights of the financial things that the bishop mentioned in his State of the Synod. Part of Bill's the description for the bishop, there was no requirement that you have to look toward the future, that you have to set any successor up for success or your synod for success. But on an incredibly lean staff, on an incredibly lean budget, you got to see programs and things that have been done that were not in existence when the bishop took office. There was no program to help those with seminary debt repackage their loans at a 0% interest rate. Pastor Bob Hansen did an awful lot of work around the campaign, but there were also, we got to have a fundraiser in chief at times too, which was not part of the job description. So, knowing that I don't want to exceed my time, I'll probably just cut it at that, but would also like to say thank you, Bishop, for all you have done on an incredibly lean staff budget and having a focus clearly towards the future of this church and those that are coming after you. So, thank you. '18 mission plan changes. So there's an error in that slide. So that should say, that shouldn't even be there. So, okay, we're going to gloss over that one. Very brief on 20, Bishop mentioned about some of the significant things. This would be relating to balance sheet items. The main takeaway here is the Synod has a little over $10 million of money. The reality is the vast majority of that is under that bottom category, the under 10 million mark donor restrictions. That means that we have to use it the way that the donors tell us it has to be used. So at the end of the day, that very top number is what we have to use relating to the operating budget. To put it in perspective, it's under a month's worth of expenses. So we watch the budget closely and adjust accordingly if need be. Bishop touched on these things, so I will not again, but this relates to the Listen God is Calling campaign. The main relay point here, at the end of the year, there was almost 300,000 of active loans still out for those who have taken advantage of this 0% debt refinancing program, which there are not many synods that do this. Definitely something Bishop should get credit for on leadership on getting started. And then the Listen God is Calling campaign, that relates to undesignated cash gifts. Bishop had a higher number. That number included donor designations to areas where that money had to go. At this point, any questions on the past? All right. I know, treasurer's reports are happy times, aren't they? 2019, 2019, that's the year we're living in right now. The budget that got passed last year, that's what we're living in now. However, we do end up tweaking it based upon what congregations send back to us for what they think they can send us. We do that after every year end. And the one thing of note, the biggest change in the year we're living in right now, another nice thing, Bishop kicked us a nice little deal. He said, hey, I can go get health insurance real cheap elsewhere, so I'll just save you the money and go get it somewhere else. So that would be the most notable change. I raise that up because if you compare it year to year, there'd be a significant drop in staff wages and benefits. I can't look back there anymore. This was a fail. The font is too small. What we have here would be just a comparison between what the Assembly passed last year and the changes that we made for the year we're living in now. Those percentages that you see next to the numbers, essentially what those say, there really wasn't much movement when we said we passed a budget that it's going to pay 69 cents on every dollar going to international and national ministry. 26 cents of every dollar is going to go to staff wages and benefits. 4 cents of every dollar are going to go to office-related expenses, and then 1% going to go to council and committees. As you can see, it moved 1 percentage point, and if anything, a positive trend where we were able to push even just a little bit more up into the mission and ministry area on account of savings. Any questions for 2019? And I'll also say, if I will be around, if at any point you have a question that you'd rather come connect with me afterward, don't hesitate to do that. And I'd be more than happy to share it in front of the assembly tomorrow before we vote. All right, so here's the bullet point proposal for the mission plan that in your handouts, it's labeled as the mission plan. No significant changes. We're asking or hoping for a 1% increase in mission support for the proposed budget. Looking to maintain support going on to the church-wide organization, and also looking to support, maintain the same percentages, I should say, of support that we provide to sustained ministry and supported ministry partners. So looking to not, another way to put it, really not looking to deviate from what we've been living in. And then, of course, proof in the numbers, you have those same cents of every dollar, percentages of every dollar after we've adjusted for that hopeful 1% increase in congregational giving. So 70% of every dollar, 70 cents on every dollar going to mission, a quarter of every dollar going to staff wages and benefits, under a nickel going to office, and then about a penny going to council and committee. All right. I think I'm still sneaking in under my time, barely. Would there be any questions related to the mission plan, at least offhand? If not, thank you for the time, and I will turn it back over to the bishop. See if I can find a good joke for tomorrow.
Okay. I thought you were going to give it up for a standing ovation, but you had nice things to say. You just weren't very funny. At this time, we will be looking at resolution number 5. I'm going to turn it over to Carla Borkhardt, our vice president, and to Pastor Craig Wexler.
Thank you, Bishop, and I ask Pastor Craig to read us the result part of Resolution 5.
as a predecessor to my current call, and out of those 115 ordinations, I think I was one of the first ones. You've been my first bishop from my ordination to now. It's an honor and a privilege to read this. The honor and ministry of Bishop David Zellmer from the South Dakota Synod Council, whereas Bishop David Zellmer has completed 2 terms and faithfully served as Bishop of the South Dakota Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America since 2007. And while serving as Bishop of the South Dakota Synod, he has faithfully provided pastoral care and leadership for the Synod, its congregations, its rostered ministers and lay members, both in times of challenge and in times of celebration. And he has exercised leadership for the Synod by seeking God's vision for mission in the midst of changing culture and demographics, and he has led the Synod and congregations in strengthening our mutual ministry with our companion Synod partners in Cameroon and Nicaragua. And the people and congregations of the South Dakota Synod will continue to benefit from his witness and leadership. Therefore be it resolved that the South Dakota Synod at this assembly give thanks to God for the ministry of the Reverend David Zellmer, and be it further resolved that the South Dakota Synod confers upon Bishop David Zellmer the honorary title of Bishop Emeritus of the South Dakota Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. Recommendation, do pass.
Thank you, Pastor Craig. So the resolution is on the floor. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Thank you. Motion carried.
Well, thank you for that. All right, we need, let's see, ballot committees to be filled. I know that Prairie Coteau filled their spot. I need to hear from Prairie Rivers and Madera Conference. Do you have your spots filled for the ballot? No. Are you going to be able, you need to be able to get that done at break, perhaps, would be a good idea, if that's possible. Can we get that done during the break? Perfect. We'll look forward to those names. At this time, I would invite our Mission Investment Fund report from Paula Kitt. And if Paula is here, would you please come forward? Thank you. If you would greet her.
Greetings to all of you. I want to take you back for just a few minutes to the year 1869, 150 years ago. And there are a few things that happened during that year that might stand out as milestones. Ulysses S. Grant became our 18th president. The Golden Spike was driven, marking the completion of the first transcontinental railroad. In Gallatin, Missouri, there was a bank robbery, and it was attributed to, who do you think? Jesse James, right. And also that year in Tremont House in Boston, it was the first hotel to install indoor what? Plumbing, right. But there was something also important going on at that time, that era, and that was the ongoing immigration of Lutherans into this country. Many of them coming, of course, from European areas. And as they landed on the shores and the borders of this country, you know, and spread out, many of them spread out all across the country, one of the first things that many of them did was to gather and worship and praise to God, to thank God for their safe arrival and for their new life ahead. Many of them did this on the first or the second day, literally, of being in this new country. And then soon after that, they would establish their churches, their congregations. And other Lutherans who are already here in the country would look to help them by pooling their resources, both financial, money resources, as well as sweat equity to help them build new church buildings. And this process was repeated as other waves of new Lutherans kept coming into this country. So in 1869, It was repeated enough that we saw the formalization of this process and the establishment of the first loan fund, established by the General Synod, which was a predecessor of our ELCA. That year, the General Synod in 1869 distributed $1,800 to 4 churches so that they could build. Now, this distribution of funds has continued for 150 years in this formal fashion, such that today, the Mission Investment Fund of the ELCA is proud to continue and carry on this tradition through giving loans. And today we give over 900 loans to ELCA congregations across the country. 8 of them are here in the South Dakota Synod, and that equates to $556 million in loans that are being utilized. Now, if you're not too familiar with Mission Investment Fund, let me just say briefly that in order to fund those loans, we ask Lutheran individuals and congregations to open up accounts and to faithfully pool their resources, just like our ancestors did 150 years ago. So the fact that we're able to continue this ministry is thanks to you. Thanks to you as individuals for opening these accounts and putting your trust in this process. Thanks to you as congregations and cemetery associations and as a South Dakota Synod. There are 86 congregations in this synod who have MIF accounts, and there are 15 cemetery associations. You are what makes this ministry vital and long-lasting so that it continues to serve this church. And it's been stable enough over the years that also, thanks to your involvement and your faith in it, we've been able over the last year to give and grant $3 million back into church ministries, and those are grants and gifts with no obligation for repayment. If you're interested in this genealogical timeline of how this fund has grown and continued, I've got a copy of it down at my table downstairs, and I would invite you to come down. And I would also invite you to come down so that I can meet you and personally say thank you for being part of this ministry. So again, as I conclude my report, I say thank you. And on behalf of the Mission Investment Fund, the Board of Trustees, the administrative staff, and investors all over the country, I just want to say a special thanks to Bishop Zelmer for his leadership, his faith, and his support, not only of the Mission Investment Fund, but of all the ministries of this church. Thank you.
At this time, I would invite my friend, Betty Oldenkamp, to please come forward. 19 years ago, I went on the board of Lutherans Outdoor, or Lutheran Social Service, as a representative of Prairie, what did we call ourselves back then? Anyway, of the central part of the state. And as I said in a funeral sermon I had on Wednesday for a good friend of mine, I joined the board with a Jew, a Roman Catholic, a banker, an undersecretary of Department of Ag, and it was an interesting group, to say the least. And it's been a privilege over these past 9 years to be on their board and to watch and be a part of the ministry of Lutheran Social Service. And so, Betty, it's all yours.
Well, thank you, Bishop. And good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of LSS, I do want to express our heartfelt gratitude for all that you do to help support our ministry of bringing hope and healing. You know, I'm pretty certain, given the nature of the work that all of you do, that you have known someone who's had a troubling time in their life or a dark moment when they lost hope. From our beginnings nearly a century ago, LSS has been carrying out an active ministry of the Lutheran Church, resurrecting hope where hope has been lost, meeting people where they are in life, walking alongside of them,
in a ministry of presence. So many of you have given so much to LSS. We have received quilts too many to keep count of that go to our kids in care. And these quilts not only provide warmth and comfort, but they let these kids know that someone cared enough about them to make that quilt. And through your gifts of treasure, LSS is able to continue to provide counseling services on a sliding fee scale so that people that have no insurance or have very limited income can still have access to counseling services. They can find hope and they can heal. And as faithful partners in the ministry of LSS, you have worked hand in hand with us across the state to welcome refugees. Not too long ago, we had some flooding in the building where we store our records, and in cleaning that up, actually found the first records of our resettlement program. And those first arrivals in November of 48 and on into 1949 didn't come to Sioux Falls. They went to communities all across South Dakota. You continue that welcome by putting together kits for folks that are newly arriving, by providing used furnishings, and by being mentors. And later this afternoon, you have the opportunity to hear firsthand from a former refugee in the Love the Sojourner workshop, and I would encourage you all to stop into that if you have time. You can also find our display table downstairs with those historic chocolate peanut clusters. We have a lot of them, so come on down and help yourself. So we are in the midst of a congregational phase for our campaign for hope. And I want to give a big thank you to the congregations and to the women's groups that have already committed to support our campaign for hope. And you can learn more about our campaign. You can talk to me. I've got a couple of other staff here who will be around throughout the Synod. But that legacy of LSS ministry began nearly 100 years ago with the House of Mercy, which was a home for unwed mothers and their newborn children. And adoption was how LSS began a ministry that resurrects hope and that has created over 4,000 happy families through adoption. Families like the Anderas, who share their story in our campaign video that I'd like to share with you now.
I struggled with 2 pregnancies. To get pregnant as well as to have the actual pregnancies were very challenging. We happened to have at our church one Sunday, they had a person from LSS come and speak and talk about foster care and talk about adoption.
I didn't know the time it took. I didn't know the investment it was going to be financially. I didn't know how it might change our family because we already had biological children.
By the end of the service, he kind of went, well, maybe we should go to a meeting. We got a call in March, and that call in March was that our profile had been selected.
You know, we knew it was getting close to the time, and we'd been meeting with birth mom several times, but you never know until birth mom has the baby, you know, if everything's going to go as planned.
I got a text not long after that Grace was born. It was just amazing to be able to bring home a baby that you wait for, you long for, and you don't know if it's going to happen. And then to bring her home is just, it's amazing. We wanted to make sure that our adoption was open, that we were going to have visits as often as she felt comfortable. We were going to have them in our home. We wanted to make her family a part of our family. Now, Grace and her older biological sister love to play together. They love to be here, so we try to have at least once a month where they come over. She knows that in our family, she is family.
Coming into this, I knew so little, and just from every meeting we had with LSS and every contact we had with the counselors along the way, I just grew more and more comfortable with how the process worked.
They were there through the whole process, and I'm so glad they were, because I can't imagine doing it without having that support. Thinking back to 6 years ago before she joined our family, here we thought, well, maybe this is it. Maybe 2 is enough. And then she came and our life changed, definitely for the better. She keeps us on our toes, but I can't imagine her not being here. It wouldn't be our family without her in it.
Grace is a beautiful and fortunate child to have found the Anderas. And I know there are probably some of you here that may know Grace's grandparents, Pastor Dennis and Mary Tranberg. So the campaign for hope. I hope that you will give consideration to joining us, being part of that campaign allowing us to come into your congregation and share the message of the ministry of LSS. We do need your support to continue to welcome the stranger through refugee resettlement, to care for the least of these through adoption, foster care, and residential treatment services, and to visit those in prison through our reentry services, resurrecting hope where hope has been lost. And with your help, together we can continue a century-old partnership of being God's hands and feet, of being a living and active church in communities. We touch the lives of over 48,000 people across South Dakota each year. And I thank you for your prayers and your financial support. That's what makes our ministry possible. That's what allows us to continue to carry out our call to love and serve our neighbor as God commanded. And I do want to take just a moment to say thank you to Bishop Zelmer. Thought I could do this without getting emotional. Nope. For your leadership, your humor, and your courage. Thank you.
So my wife in the past actually worked for LSS back in the day. When she was finishing up her master's degree, did work with them. She ran the counseling office out at Mobridge while we were living in that rural parsonage. And she would drive over every Sunday night and work all day and then come home on Tuesday. We have had a deep, passionate relationship with LSS through our 38 years. LaDonna and I are just finishing, in fact, finished it this week, our leadership gift to LSS, to the campaign. I would prayerfully ask you to do a gift and to also run the campaign in your congregations. The work that we do together through them really does matter across this state. So I would invite you to participate in that. All right. Let's see where we're at, and we're actually on time. We could have a little applause for that. And if I could have Jamie Dupre to come forward. She's a South Dakota Synod certified coach, and she's going to be talking about the Coach Network.
Aren't you glad we have lots of other speakers so we don't have to listen to just... I can only be up here for a short time because I have a black lanyard. So, in February of 2018, I meekly approached my husband, Jeremy, and whispered to him, "What do you think it would look like if I sought out some sort of life coach training?" And my body language was already dismissing this question, but meanwhile, Jeremy reached over and pulled up a flyer that he had received that very day from the Synod office about a life coach training in May. And part of that training included me being coached. And through that process, that very weekend, last May, a year ago, here, I went home to Hill City with some action steps, and I had 3 conversations. And after that third conversation, I was speaking to my boss at the time, the elementary principal, and I surprised myself and said, "Well, I resign." So coaching has changed my life, and I want you all to know there is a coaching network here in the Synod available to all of you, all of us, no matter what color your lanyard is. And I will be attending the first annual Synod Life Coach Coordinator Conference in a couple weeks in Washington, D.C., so that we can work on the mission to support and encourage clergy and lay people to build up strong leaders through the process of coaching. So I encourage you to use this network for personal and professional growth, development, accountability, and encouragement as we all walk together to serve and lead for Christ. Don't necessarily quit your jobs, but coaching will change your life. Thank you.
There you go. Okay, she was funny. All right, at this time, I'm going to invite Bill Horn to please come to the podium, and we will be moving to the second ballot.
Thank you, Bishop. We are now moving toward our second ballot. I would like to, at this time, introduce our credentials report. I guess, Kelsey, you're going to do the credentials? Good.
As of 2:10 today, there are 141 clergy voting members, 231 lay female voting members, 158 lay male, with a total lay male voting members at 389 and total voting members 530.
Thank you for that report. If you are not eligible to vote on the second ballot, we're going to ask you to please leave the room. So if you're not eligible to vote, please leave the room. So it looks like everybody here is eligible. All right. So you have now heard the report of the first ballot earlier. On the second ballot, all the names that appeared on the first ballot and received legal votes will appear on the second ballot unless the person withdrew his or her name. You will vote for one person by paper ballot. On the second ballot, just as the first, 75% of the legal ballots cast are necessary for election. If there is no election, the third ballot will contain the names of 7 nominees plus ties who received the most legal votes on the second ballot. As a heads up, prior to the third ballot, you will receive biographical information for each of the nominees whose name will appear on that ballot, and conferences will convene at designated places to listen to the nominees. Those meetings will be tomorrow afternoon. The process of preparing to vote and voting will be the same. I will ask for questions, if there are any, and then I will ask Bishop Eitram. He will provide a time of spiritual preparation, followed by the distribution of ballots and voting. Are there any questions? As before, let us clear our minds of the cares of daily life and ask the Holy Spirit to come in. Bishop Eitram.
Let us pray. Lord, we understand that your Holy Spirit has been at work in the whole process of choosing a bishop. We are aware that this is a call process, that it's not a contest based on popularity or platform. Lord, we know there are many who could serve the office of bishop, and we lift their names up to you now. So as we winnow the list, work through your will, with your will through this assembly. Guide these representatives of the church here assembled as they vote. Come, Holy Spirit, enlighten us with your wisdom. Give us counsel and insight as we try to discern your will. Amen.
I ask that the tellers distribute the ballots. As we prepare to vote on the second ballot for Bishop of the South Dakota Synod, please wait until instructed to vote. Does everyone have a ballot? Is there anyone that does not have a ballot? Raise your hands if you do not have a ballot. All right, it looks like everyone has a ballot. Please vote now. Again, vote for one person only. When you have finished, pass your vote to the left, face down. Oh, was that his? Yeah, okay. I think we got to get rhythm.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's moving.
Yeah?
It's moving smoothly. Yeah. Does anyone need more time to vote? Sounds like you don't, because a lot of conversation there. Does anyone need more time to vote? Has all of the ballots been collected? All right, we have one section over here, it appears, of ballots. Thank you, sir. Are there any more ballots that need to be collected? I declare the second ballot for the election of the Bishop of South Dakota Synod closed. I will now return the chair to Bishop Zellmer.
Okay, not that we're bragging, but you got 9 more minutes for break. But we still need to hear from Maderi and from Prairie River conferences. There are some spots that we need to have you fill in. I would just recommend you take a moment, stay where you are instead of moving and then try to meet again. Stay where you're at, enter into a conversation, and then you need to find either Carla or Pastor Vihar or myself or Sawyer. You can't see him, so find one of us and give us those names, and we'll get them entered into the ballot. Are we okay? Some people really want their break, don't they? All right. So make sure you visit the Neighbors in Solidarity. Grab a sheet on the way out. Please go see the display items, particularly the ones in the basement. There's a whole display area down there. We need to have you back here for 3:30. For those of you that are new to the assembly, we're going to be doing something that we always do every year, but on a different day. And that is, we're going to have the annual meeting for Lutherans Outdoors. So the South Dakota Synod Assembly will recess, and the annual meeting of Lutherans Outdoors will go into session. It is the same body, because that ministry is owned by you. And so one entity is going to stop being in existence and the other one will start up. So please be attentive to time and be back here at 3:30. And if we can run, oh, wait a minute, one more announcement. Can we have our breakout topic displayed, where they're going to be located? So when you say sanctuary, does that mean in the where we had worship this morning? Campus ministry is in the friendship room, that is into the west side of the church on this level. The LSS Love to Sojourner, lower level fellowship hall. Stories from Pine Ridge, it will be back in here. That will be at 4:15 or 4:40, excuse me. And now you can play the video, and we're on break until 3:30.
Church on the Street is a ministry with people struggling with poverty and homelessness here in Sioux Falls. It is a beautiful ministry that has bloomed out of us asking a question: if you had a church, what would it look like? And people who were not so churchy answered that question honestly. And from that, we were able to really build a church that God called us to be at. Doesn't have walls. It is truly a Holy Spirit-driven church, and we gather in different places. In the summer, we gather outside at Heritage Park, which is also known as the Mission Park. We spend many days every single week out on the street, so we really feel like we're walking with people, really accompanying them through whatever it is that they're going through in life, and being the church with them far more often than on a Sunday morning for an hour. So it's really been just a beautiful, beautiful process.
It's totally changed my life. I lived in Oklahoma and wasn't doing too good. I was homeless. And then I met Pastor Rebel, and she helped me flip my life around.
I had found out that her story was that had she not encountered somebody who cared about her and who was willing to be church with her, she probably would have been dead from the drug use that she was doing. And those are her words: I would have died. Her story is one of being so lost in this city, having come in from another city, having no one, not understanding what church was, and coming for the first time to Church on the Street out in the park and crying because she was so happy to hear the words, "You are a beloved child of God and you are welcome here."
This means very much to me. She means a lot to me. If it wasn't for her, this wouldn't even be possible.
And she has not left Church on the Street since. And so I am so happy to say that she goes with me and she meets with youth groups and she tells them their story, that even at the worst of times, the hardest of times, you need to hear those words, that you are a beloved child of God.
I asked God what my purpose was on this earth, and this is it. This is what I do to help the people.
It has been beautiful. She's doing so well, and she is one of many stories that look like that, of just an accompaniment ministry that loves people as Christ would. We have been extremely blessed to be a neighbor in solidarity with so many congregations in this town and really across the whole state, which has been really amazing. I just want to say thank you to everybody who has joined us in ministry so far, everybody who has been gracious and kind and loving and supportive. We are so thankful, and we truly are blessed to be blessed by you, and so thankful to be part of the South Dakota Synod.